Good afternoon. Let me introduce myself as Project Manager at AUB Executive Education Program, and would like to welcome you on behalf of USAID Competitives Program JCP team, AUB team, and Inventus team. The growth readiness of small and medium-sized organizations is a necessity for economic stimulation and job creation. As such, today's agenda is meant to unveil the challenges and opportunities for SMEs growth, introducing to the community a program that supports this growth. The Growth Readiness Program, what we will be referring to as GRP, is part of USAID JCP initiative, aiming to creating new jobs in Jordan in the promising sectors of clean technology, health and life sciences, and ICT. We will start our event with a welcome note from Dr. Rabadi, USAID JCP Chief of Staff, followed by our keynote speaker, Dr. Azzam, lecturer and director at the Master in Finance at AUB, as well as former chairman and CEO at Deutsche Bank MENA. Now I will leave the floor to Dr. Rabadi.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, I guess, and welcome everybody. It's great to see our friends from AUB is back, and of course the great companies that we work with from Jordan, some of the leading company really in the country. Just to give everybody a little background about this program and why we did it and what the results were. So when we started about 3 years ago, we did a lot of assessments, and one thing we realized that there was a lot of support for startup programs. There's the WASIS and iPark and many support program to help startups. But when we looked around, there was very few programs that are really targeting medium-sized companies. These companies that are already got traction, they have employees, they got good revenue, some of them about to export and some of them are exporting. And we realized that actually as a program that is trying to create jobs, that this segment of companies in Jordan, which is the medium-sized companies, are the most likely company to be scaled up, to be accelerated and help to grow on the immediate term. That's why we looked and we say, okay, so what is the issue? What needs to be done? What programs need to be in place to try to help these medium-sized companies to become large companies, to become global companies, if possible. And of course, one of the things we really realized that there is an issue of capital. One of the things was access to finance, was the availability of capital for companies to grow. So at least there was several issues, of course, human resources, skills, etc., and an enabling environment. But there was the access to finance and access to capital kept coming back as one of the main issues that hindering the growth of medium-sized companies in Jordan. So we looked at the whole area of capital and access to finance, and there are three major things that came up. Number one is the sort of supply of capital, the VCs, the banks, who can provide the capital to companies to grow. The other one was really the companies themselves and their readiness to attract debt and investment. And the third one was really the enabling environment. What regulations, especially at a time when many knowledge-intensive companies, which is the most likely to grow, had no assets or not much assets that they couldn't, and collaterals that they could access debt. So we did design certain interventions, we did design certain activities to address some of these issues. For example, in the enabling environment, we work with the Ministry of Industry and Trade, and we introduce what we call the movable assets collateral registry, which basically allow companies to access debt not based on fixed assets, but also in movable assets and other kind of assets. Today, the system is up and running at the ministry, and we're waiting really for a law called the Secure Lending Law to pass, and we're hoping that will pass soon. That we estimate will increase loans to SMEs by about 7%, which comes to, I don't know, $600 million a year or so of additional funding and debt available to SMEs. We also work with the central bank, who had a facility and a window for low interest rate for certain companies. They did not include the IT sector in there, so we worked with the central bank and we added the ICT sector to the low interest window of the central bank. From the supply of capital, the banks, the VCs, we also did work with both the equity side and the debt side. We work with angel investors, work with some of the VCs in Jordan to provide them deal flow and to access to finance. In one case, we actually work with one of the leading banks in Jordan, the Ahli Bank, and I'm glad Saad is here. And we designed a whole product with them targeting clean energy, clean technology projects. These are a bit tricky to finance. They need a lot of analysis and feasibility analysis, their cash flow. But we really designed and trained Ahli Bank loan officers on how to finance renewable energy and clean technology kind of project to facilitate more investment and more finance to these projects. But there was one issue that kept coming up from both the investors, as the equity investors, and the banks. And the issue was the readiness of the company. How is their governance system? What is their strategy? What is their financial system look like? And we realized that many companies in Jordan, they succeed, they grow, but at a certain point, they don't look like a corporation. They're not really ready to attract investment, which scares the investor or the bank about investing in these companies. At that point, we designed a program. We partners with our friends from the AUB and Inventus to really design a program that is not like a mini MBA. It's a more custom program. And our friends from Investors really spent some time with each one of the company. We selected about 12 companies. And they spent time with each one of these companies actually understanding the gaps, understanding where are the weaknesses. And then AUB designed the curriculum to address specifically these gaps. So it was not a ready off-the-shelf kind of mini MBA program, but it was really tailored to address the gaps that were identified early on and help these companies address these gaps, whether it's related to corporate governance or if it's related to financial management, human resources, strategy, negotiation skills. They actually work with them in term sheets, preparing term sheets, negotiating with some investors. And I was really excited about this program, and I'm really happy to see that in total, what we can learn from these companies that about $16 million were raised, partially at least due to this program, and this program helping them really accessing capital. So I think it was a great success, and we were very pleased with the output of this program. This was a pilot program. We demonstrated how it works. We invested early on in demonstrating its success. We do hope going forward that AUB and some stakeholders in Jordan who are interested in this program, I don't know if I am at the liberty to announce or say anything about it, but I'll leave it to AUB to tell us, to take this program forward. Meaning to institutionalize this program, make it available and affordable to medium-sized companies who are really looking to raise capital, fix their HR system, their corporate governance system, their financial system that will make them attractive to investor, where they can raise the needed capital that will allow them to grow, export, and create more jobs. So thank you everybody for coming today. Thanks for AUB and our friend from Inventus. And of course, a great thank for all the companies, especially the CEOs, who we had to drag them out of their companies because we insisted that the CEO, or at least a C-level person, need to be in these sessions, because that's where the buy-in happen. And many of them, they left their very busy scheduled, and they participated in the program. And I hope it was very beneficial, and I hope we keep seeing more and more of these waves and graduates of this company to help a company grow. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this session.
Thank you, Dr. Rabadi. We are very proud to hear that. And now I will leave the floor to Dr. Azzam for the keynote speech.
Thank you, Sally. Good afternoon. It's such a pleasure to be here. Such a pleasure to see so many good old friends and colleagues. I would like to just spend a few minutes talking to you about the recent developments that are taking place in the fintech space. All of us agree that the small and medium-sized companies constitute the backbone of the Jordanian economy. Nevertheless, today, small companies still find it very difficult to raise either debt or equity through the normal channels. It's estimated that 70% of the loans requested by small companies here are rejected. Without a collateral, without a guarantee, without assignment of receivables, it would be difficult to tap the banking, the normal banking channels in Jordan. Guarantees, cheap funding from the central bank would help, but would not push banks into extending more loans. The problem is not with the availability of funding. Funding is there. The problem is with the capital adequacies, the need for banks to take a higher allocation of their capital when extending loans to small and medium-sized businesses. So that is difficult. Raising equity is even harder. It's so difficult for small companies to meet the stringent listing requirements of the Amman Stock Exchange in terms of capital, in terms of number of shareholders, in terms of transparency. It's not surprising, therefore, that not a single IPO came to the market since 2007. Do we have venture capital funds? Do we have private equity funds? Yes, there are a few, but it's not enough to meet the requirements of the small businesses coming up. This leaves them, for major source of funding remains internal sources than anything else. I will touch on three funding channels that have become visible internationally and see how could we adapt here to meeting these challenges. Mainly the online peer-to-peer funding to raise debt, crowdfunding to raise equity, and the small cap electronic stock exchange that we have seen coming up in the region, and maybe we should give it serious consideration here in Jordan. Starting with debt, the online peer-to-peer lending have started threatening, disrupting the retail business of banks internationally. Today, banks can extend fast, i.e. 24 to 48 hours, unsecured loans without collateral, without assignment of receivables to small companies who approach or who apply online for these platforms. The amounts have been ranging between 1,000 to 30,000. They can go slightly higher, and interest rates anywhere between 9 and 25%. This is internationally. The people who are providing the funding, I don't want to call them lenders because they're not lenders, they are investors, are willing to take the risk because A, they have a say in which loans they want to finance, so they can pick and choose. B, the rate of return is commensurate with the risk. It's a good rate of return. C, they give small amounts of money to several borrowers, so diversification of their portfolio. And the most important, they trust the ability of the platform to do the right screening of applicants through data mining and data analytics. The platform does not take credit risk, but it takes a lot of reputational risk. So they have a reputation that they need to maintain. Fortunately, the first peer-to-peer platform, and the only peer-to-peer platform in the Arab world, is here in Jordan. It's called Liwa, established 2012, became operational 2014, 2015. It gives loans all the way from 1,000 to 20, 25,000 JDs. And it's promising. What has been happening in that sphere is quite promising. Of course, the giants of the peer-to-peer online lending internationally are much more powerful. I just give you an example of one of them, which is the leader in the field, the what's called SOFI, social finance SOFI. This year alone, they were able to place $6 billion worth of loans to consumers and small businesses. I'm talking about the US market. Compared to only 1.3 billion just 2 years ago. They already have 175,000 customers. They have banking lines of around 4 billion. They have been doing amazing. There are other online peer-to-peer lenders well known, such as On Deck, Lending Club, Prosper, Cabbage, etc. Because they don't have branches, because they are thinly staffed, they can operate efficiently and they can compete with the giants of the banks here. Just also mention Sophie, for example, is planning to go into mortgages, into opening a customer's account, into providing wealth management online, into providing also insurance, life insurance. Let's move to equity. Crowdfunding stands up. Today, companies in Jordan, in the region, can draw on crowdfunding platforms such as Zumal in Lebanon, such as Eureka in Dubai, among others. Of course, internationally, there are much bigger crowdfunding platforms that they can draw upon. This is interesting because all what you need if you have a venture that you want to finance, you go online to the crowdfunding site. The site will help you come up with valuation of your venture and will help you come up with a viable business plan. On the other hand, there are small crowd investors who will put in small amounts of money, but when they added, they would bring up the targeted amount that you need to raise. It's a new formula. It has been tested, working. Zumal has been doing quite well, and I think we need to give it serious consideration here. People who are investing on the investing side are also making good return. The risk return commensurate with the risk they are taking, and they are diversifying as well. Finally, I want to touch on the issue of small cap electronic stock exchanges. Lebanon is planning to establish one, most probably mid of 2017. Saudi Arabia, UAE already have one up and running. The idea here is come up with a small cap stock exchange whereby the listing requirement is less stringent, whereby companies with capital base of 700,000 or less can go and list, 500 can go and list, where the amount they can sell is not more than 20% if they so choose, where the transparency requirements are slightly lower. I mean, we all heard of the penny stocks in the USA. It's all over the world, but we don't have it yet in our region, at least not in the Levant region. Hopefully, and in order to reduce speculation, this should be restricted, in my view, to only institutional investors, but then opening it up later to small investors. Small investors could always join through mutual funds. The electronic platform, part of it would make it accessible to Jordanian diaspora, Jordanian expats worldwide. Let me close by saying that banks internationally are feeling the heat, but it doesn't need to be confrontational. We have seen JP Morgan Chase buying into OnDeck, making it its own online peer-to-peer lending. We have seen Goldman Sachs this year establishing Marcus, its own online peer-to-peer lending, named after Marcus Goldman, who was the founder of Goldman Sachs in the 19th century. It's interesting that Al-Ittihad Bank here in Jordan has also teamed up with the Liwa peer-to-peer lending forum. It's bound to come and challenge the banking scene here. Banks have to reconsider their retail banking strategy, think of peer-to-peer lending, think of other ways of raising funds, and more important, the regulators should also get to grips with this space, what's happening here, put in place the right legal regulatory framework that would make it easier for SMEs in Jordan to really benefit from what has been developing internationally. Thank you.